In this video, I'm going to explain the best carb sources to eat for the maximum amount of fat loss. And I'm going to be going through specific examples of what types of carbs we need to be eating, but also breaking a lot of myths around carbohydrates with like white carbs make you fat, and then understanding the glycemic index, comfortability, and then exactly what carbs that we should utilize in a fat loss phase and a metabolic priming phase. So my name is Adam Bunnell. I'm an online fat loss professional, and I specialize in metabolic priming, which is a process of metabolism manipulation that I've used with 200 plus clients in just the last 6 months alone. And it's not only proven to be the most beneficial, but the most predictable way to lose body fat and keep it off for good. So if you want to learn a little bit more about metabolic priming, there'll be a main video pinned on my YouTube channel. But the purpose of today is to actually explain the best carb sources. And this was actually a comment from one of our subscribers who wanted to learn a little bit more about this. So I think it's really great that the guys who do watch my channel, let me know what you guys want to learn about more, because the purpose of this entire channel is to teach you guys more about how to get to that next level physique. So let's get into right into the video though. So anyways, breaking a lot of myths that you probably heard about carbohydrates, right? So a lot of myths is, first of all, carb is a carb. 1 gram of carb equals 1 gram of carb. If it comes from a sugar, or if it comes from white bread, or if it comes from a white rice, a carb is a unit of measurement. So 1 carb equals 1 carb. And in a lot of cases, a lot of guys don't know how much carbs. And so, you revert back to the psychological method of saying, white carbs are bad. But I'm actually going to explain a lot more in detail about why that's even a thing and the misconception about that in general, right? So a carb is a carb. It's a unit of measurement. So white carbs will make you fat. And I think this is really, it explains a lot about today in the food industry, but also doctors, for instance, who tell their clients, hey, let's not eat any white carbs. But we have to understand the concept of why, right? Is because you got to understand the glycemic index. So white carbs, for instance, are going to be higher in calories, but they're going to be more condensed in carbohydrates, which means they're going to be higher in calories and lower in volume. Low glycemic carbohydrates, like your typical brown rice or anything that's like more of the brown variety, is going to have more fiber, more volume, and it's going to be more satiating because it's going to feel like you're eating more with less calories. So in a lot of different cases, doctors will say to their patients, hey, let's stick to all brown carb sources, or let's stay away from like white carb sources. And why that is that psychologically, you're basically promoting somebody to eat less calories. And that's the only benefit behind it. But at the end of the day, a carbohydrate equals a carbohydrate. But a lot of guys don't know how to track carbohydrates or how much they even need to eat. And so the simplicity way of telling a patient, hey, let's stay away from white carbs is a lot easier than telling them, hey, eat this much carbs, because the whole process is a skill. And it's also something that you learn over time on how to track how much. And that's why it's an easier way to treat a lot of patients that come to us. So the fibrous foods is like more of a psychological benefit. You feel like you're eating more volume for the same amount of calories or lower amount of calories. And so in a lot of different cases, like the lower carb option is going to be more of a brown rice or more of a brown variety that is going to be also lower in calories in general, but also have more fiber, which fiber makes you feel satiated, makes you feel full. And so another one is the insulin, right? And so insulin gets this bad rap into society, and a lot of comments on my YouTube channel. It's like, oh, your insulin's terrible, insulin's bad. Insulin is needed. Like, you need insulin to promote blood sugar levels. And insulin is a unique hormone that allows us to put carbohydrates in the correct places. Like bodybuilders, for instance, why they will eat like a very high glycemic carbohydrate like a pineapple or a honey right after their workout, so they can spike their insulin levels and shuttle carbohydrates into the right places faster. But it all comes back in full circle by not understanding the how much. That's the big question. It's like how much? And when you understand how much to eat, insulin doesn't really necessarily matter, because insulin is a hormone produced by the pancreas that helps blood sugar, food into the cells to use it for energy. It's crucial for maintaining healthy blood sugar levels, preventing complications of diabetes, and for individuals with type 1 diabetes, insulin is necessary because their bodies no longer produce it. For some individuals with type 2 diabetes, insulin therapy may be needed. But another thing about insulin is it acts as a key to allow glucose from your blood to enter your body's cell, providing them with energy. Without enough insulin, glucose builds up in the bloodstream, leading to high blood sugar levels and potentially health complications like diabetes. So Another thing about diabetes in general is that, like, one thing that will 100% help with diabetes is just weight loss, right? And I think that goes very unlooked, and they always cause or blame insulin as the main factor for a lot of these cases. But like we've seen right here, insulin is extremely important for one, transporting carbohydrates to the correct places, to sending satellite signals to the muscle fibers to actually start growing, but also making sure that we are providing the muscles with enough energy to recuperate resources. But like I said, it comes back really just full circle and understanding how much carbohydrates we need to eat, not being scared because this carbohydrate is going to give me insulin. And like, people think of insulin as like the boogeyman, but in reality, like, you need insulin for healthy promotion of blood sugar levels and also healthy cells. So anyways, I want to kind of get into the lower glycemic and higher glycemic index as well, because like, understanding the glycemic index, you can kind of unlock a lot of different things when it does come to fat loss, right? And it really comes down to, one, like we mentioned earlier, high glycemic foods, higher in calories, but digest quicker and easier. Low glycemic foods, lower in calories, but digest slower because they have fiber in them, right? So when you understand this concept of one carbohydrate equals one carbohydrate, but one digests faster and one digests slower, you can almost kind of use the glycemic index as a comfortability mechanism, right? You can eat more volume of lower glycemic carbs and feel more satiated with lower glycemic foods. So like we mentioned above, the lower glycemic foods like the bread, the potatoes, or the more brown variety of carbohydrates are going to make you feel fuller for less calories, but they digest slower. They digest much, much slower. And so on the other opposite end of things, the higher glycemic foods, one, digest faster, but they are more condensed in calories. So when we're thinking about the comfortability of these things, is that like, if you're somebody who is trying to maintain a certain carbohydrate amount and a certain calorie amount, and you're struggling with hunger, we can utilize lower glycemic foods to make us feel more satiated with the same calories and carbohydrates. Or if you're somebody who is maybe in a metabolic priming phase or really trying to get your body to grow, you can utilize higher glycemic carbohydrates like white rice, cream of rice, fruit, rice cakes to get more carbohydrates for less of the volume, right? And so I think there is a big unlocking factor within understanding digestion, right? You can optimize digestion with higher glycemic foods or get more calories of carbohydrates with the same volume. So let's talk about digestion really quick, because digestion is the first thing in the first process of the metabolic process, right? You have to break down and digest the food before your body takes the energy and utilizes it from the broken down food. So each and every single one of our clients that come to us, the first thing we do is just optimize digestion. Get your digestion at key optimal level, right? And that's why you see some of our clients lose 15, 20 pounds within the first couple of weeks, because we get their digestion, improving digestion and making sure food is flowing through our body very well. And I personally solve about 15 to 20 digestion-related issues each week, because when you understand digestion, one, you can understand how to fix it, yes, but there is certain concepts that you can to improve digestion. And one is like simply sticking to like more of a higher glycemic carbohydrate, which is going to be easier to digest. It's going to enter your bloodstream much faster. But at the end of the day, like we've mentioned, a carbohydrate is a carbohydrate. At the end of the day, this carbohydrate is a carbohydrate. So whether it's a higher glycemic carbohydrate or a lower glycemic carbohydrate, it doesn't matter besides when it comes to digestion, because the higher glycemic carbohydrate is going to digest much faster. So let's actually get into more of like key concepts and takeaways from you guys. And this is the exact concept I use with 200 of my current clients, okay? So the carbohydrates we want to use, and this is probably what you guys came to watch this video for anyways, in a fat loss phase, is very simple, very quick digestion carbohydrates. Food flows through our body very well. We don't have any stoppage, and the time of consumption excretion starts to diminish, and it gets shorter, right? So we're getting food to flow through our body very well, and we're utilizing that food and that energy from the broken down food at a much higher rate. So when my clients go into more of a fat loss phase, we teach them, like, let's stick in the fat loss phase to white rice, cream of rice, fruit, and rice cakes, because we're going to optimize digestion. And as you start to get lower in calories, it becomes more important that we take care of digestion. We make sure to optimize digestion for metabolic levels, for good sensitivity to carbohydrates, to make sure that our body is utilizing those carbohydrates and breaking them down more properly. And so we simplify a lot of different things in more of a fat loss phase for our clients, because it just, when you simplify everything, everything becomes easier. That's just plain and simple. When you simplify the digestion process, your body becomes used to it and utilizes it in more of a simple manner. Okay, so when our clients come to us in a fat loss phase, we do white rice, cream rice, fruit, rice cakes. Those are the only carbohydrates that we eat. When we go into a metabolic priming phase, or if we're trying to put food down, we can utilize more of a higher glycemic carbohydrate, right? Because the reason why we have this multi-rule aspect is because, one, it comes down to more of a coaching perspective. So our clients go into a metabolic priming phase so we can optimize their metabolism, optimize their hormone levels, optimize their testosterone before we go to a fat loss phase. And why we want to do this is because, we want to get the calories up and we want to create a good base before we actually lower the calories, so we have more calories to actually lower them from. Like I said, there'll be a full video on metabolic priming on my channel, but in a metabolic priming phase, we try to keep our clients more lenient, more comfortable, more macro tracking and macro friendly with flexible dieting. And so we tell them, just stay comfortable. Whatever you like to eat, you eat. If you like to eat, cereal, you have to eat bagels, English muffins, pasta, quinoa, oats. You can eat any of these options as long as it meets the amount of carbohydrates that we provide you to eat. So we give them a certain amount of carbohydrates to eat, 175 grams of carbs a day, 200 grams of carbs a day. And we allow them to choose from a list of foods that they would like to eat. And the list goes on and on and on, because when you understand flexible dieting, you can eat what you want as long as you hit that current carbohydrate amount, because like we've mentioned before, carbohydrate equals a carbohydrate. So, in a metabolic priming phase, we try to keep our clients as comfortable as possible, teach them a lot about macronutrients, teach them about sustainability, and, we utilize all these different factors, right? We utilize cereal in some cases, bagels, English muffins, pasta, quinoa, oats. All of these apply. And when you understand these as well, is that you can understand, for instance, bagels and English muffins, right? So when our clients get pretty high in carbohydrates, because a lot of them actually do, before they actually start a fat loss phase, you can get more carbohydrates from a more condensed amount with bagels and English muffins. So if you're somebody who wants to put weight on or put muscle mass on, you can utilize bagels and English muffins to get more carbohydrates for a lower condensed amount. So getting to a high carbohydrate amount is good to utilize basically really dense carbohydrate meals like cereal, bagels, English muffins. But we try to keep our clients as comfortable as possible in metabolic priming phase. This allows more adherence, more consistency, and then more predictability, right? And then we go into more of a metabolic priming phase and okay, now let's optimize everything. Let's optimize everything and simplify everything for fat loss. But we need to understand that there is no fat loss phase without a metabolic priming phase. There is no fat loss phase without a metabolic priming phase. And why that is because we want to get our clients' carbohydrates up here at this amount before we start bringing them back down. What a lot of people will do is they will start right here and then they'll just go downwards this way, and they'll never actually have traction, right? And, we talked about this a ton on my channel about metabolic priming, but the reason why you want to get your carbohydrates up here is because you can have more carbohydrates to work with in a fat loss phase. It becomes more sustainable and the cut becomes much, much easier. So, we need to understand metabolic priming phase and why it is important, but also understand the psychology of actual coaching. If you tell somebody, for the entirety of the metabolic priming phase not to eat XYZ, a lot of times they'll want to eat XYZ. But, when we go into a fat loss phase, we actually do condense that a little bit and tell them the purpose of it is for enhanced digestion. And when you get out of a fat loss phase and you want to just maintain your current body composition, all of these apply. You can use all of these if you'd like to. But when you understand fat loss in general, it's a lot harder to take fat off than it is to maintain it being off. So, anyways, carbohydrates to utilize in fat loss phase, and then carbohydrates to use in a metabolic priming phase, and we could even put a / just maintaining body composition phase. So, anyways, overall, I want you guys to understand that carbohydrate equals a carbohydrate, and the only thing that matters between the two, higher glycemic carbohydrates, lower glycemic carbohydrates, white rice, brown rice, is digestion and comfortability. None of that matters because a carbohydrate is a carbohydrate. But when we understand digestion, there is certain carbohydrates that are better for digestion than others. So if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. Shoot me a bell notification on because we're doing videos on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you guys want to hear anything more in the comments, you want to hear about a certain topic, throw it in there, and so we can make sure we get your questions covered. But like I said, like, comment, subscribe, turn the bell notifications on so you don't miss my next video on Wednesday.